Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays with Kelsey and Dill. Very, very eventful episode today, as we are going to be talking about a lot of stuff that happened last week. Literally, right before we recorded for Deadpool and Wolverine, we got all this influx of Marvel news, and we said, you know what? Do we want to spend half of our Deadpool Wolverine review talking about it, or do we want to just save it for its own episode? But then we also said, do people want to see it as its own episode? So we added a little extra something to it as well, because we are going to be talking about the San Diego Comic-Con Hall H News. Plus, we are going to be doing a top 10 list designed by Kelsey of her top 10 and my top 10 funniest Marvel MCU moments. So that'll be fun. Just to kind of give you a little bit of the housekeeping and then some of the more like fun stuff. But Kelsey, how are you doing? How's your week been since we've seen Deadpool and Wolverine? You've seen it again, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how do you feel?
I immediately wanted to jump right back into it. You know, once the shock of everything that happens in that movie passed, I definitely wanted to see it again. I think last week I might have lied, though. I said I was just going to wait for it to come out on Disney Plus, and then I immediately abandoned that because I wanted to get back to see it again. Yeah. And you know what, Dill? I liked it even more the second time.
Good, cool.
I mean, I still agree. Everything that we said last week about it in our review still holds up. I still agree with everything that we said, all the critiques that we had about it. But at the end of the day, it's so much fun and it's so funny that I kind of have forgiven it a little bit.
Which is perfect for this episode because we're going to be talking about the top 10 funniest MCU moments. Yeah, I haven't seen it again. I'm going to take my mom because she's actually a mega Madonna fan, which I totally forgot about until like I started singing like a prayer around. She's like, why are you singing like my favorite song? I was like, your favorite song? And I actually, look, my mom actually, I'm at my beach house right now, so I'll show you right now. My mom has her Madonna beach towel drying right now on the wall. It's a literal Madonna beach towel. So like, that should go to show, but I do want to make an amendment to the review because someone, friend of the show, previous title champ Stacey Morris, reached out and said, your mom's not the only number one fan of Madonna. So I wanted to shout her out here and say Stacey was also the biggest Madonna fan I knew. I didn't know until she reached out, but I just wanted to give her her due as well. So my mom and Stacey, the biggest Madonna fans I know, apparently. So just wanted to make that amendment. But yeah, I'm excited to see it again. I do want to see it again with a crowd because I think that's kind of the best way to experience it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but I also am trepidatious just because I didn't love it as much as you did. But yeah, that's how it is, what was the best thing you saw this week otherwise, though, Kels? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was also fun being in the theater because there was still like, I feel like the audience is pretty split, like 50-50. Like I feel like, some people had still not seen it. So it was fun, like hearing all the genuine reactions around me, like, cause I knew everything that was coming, but the people like sitting to my left had never seen it before. So they were like, oh my God. And I was like, this is so great for them to be experiencing this for the first time. I felt honored to be a part of their journey. Best thing I watched otherwise. What did I even watch this week? Oh, I got to did we talk about I saw Long Legs.
I think you mentioned you like yeah. So it's time has passed quickly. I mean, sometimes you don't have anything to watch this week, and honestly, this week I was kind of the same boat. I didn't really watch a ton because I've been like wrapping up the retrospective and preparing for August and stuff. I watched. I was very sick last week, so I watched a bunch of like movies just for the retrospective. But like the best thing I watched this week was Interstellar because I watched it for the retrospective. I love that movie. You might hear me talking about it a little bit later on another video, but everything I've been watching this week is like news related to either the United States of America or Marvel, because those seem to be the two big outlets. So I think we should probably just jump right in, unless Kelsey did think of something.
Well, the best thing I watched was Simone Biles winning gold again at the Olympics. That's the best thing I watched.
Yes, I actually agree. I did watch that as well. Every time I turned it on, she had already went, and I was like, why wouldn't they save her for last? And then I was able to rewind it. Out, but actually no, you know what, I did watch something last night that I really liked that I forgot to log on Letterboxd, which is why I forgot I watched it. Young Woman in the Sea, the new Daisy Ridley movie where she swims the English Channel. Disney did a shit job marketing it, and I want to just raise attention to it because it's really good. So that's my best thing I watch. But I mean, I can't think about anything else to watch because in the back of my brain I just see the same image over and over, and it's RDJ pulling the Doctor Doom mask off and revealing himself.
Yeah.
So we have to talk about it, but we're going to start
Yeah.
at the top of Hall H and just kind of work our way through. Deadpool and Wolverine had a panel. It was kind of just celebrating what had just come out. They all performed like the choral, like a prayer, as you see.
Mm.
Brought out all the actors, so they screened it for the Comic-Con audience, I believe, or one of the audiences, and then they brought out all the actors. So I won't list their names, but all like the cameoed actors showed up, which was pretty cool.
Mhm.
There was a panel for Brave New World. Again, not much new that we haven't found out from the trailer, just because it's coming out soon and we have a trailer for it. There's not a lot of new news for it, but Harrison Ford was kind of his regular old self on the red carpet, saying like, what the hell is an anchor being? Like all these questions that people were asking. I don't give a shit, which I think is very refreshing and fun to have. Then we had Thunderbolts. Again, not a lot new that we found out, just kind of a cast assembling on stage. So there we obviously see some newcomers, but also some old familiar faces like Wyatt Russell and Florence Pugh. Everyone in interviews has said that like Florence Pugh is the movie, which makes me excited. Everyone's been saying like Sebastian Stan and David Harbour both said like, you got to watch this movie for Florence. So, that has me excited. And then of course the first huge announcement was we did get a title for Fantastic Four, and it is Fantastic Four First Steps, which need to pick your brain a bit on what you think of that. So there's and there's a director, I believe, right next to him as well. So we got the four and we got the name Fantastic Four First Steps. What do you think of that name?
Jill, looking at the cast, I mean, obviously, like all those are all great actors, and I'm excited for what they're gonna do. But I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't take this revamp to maybe cast more diversely, because I think that's the first time I've seen the four of them all together, and I'm like, I don't know. I wish they would have just, maybe one more person of color in that group. I would have preferred.
Right.
But so we did get along with the title review, they did they did show a teaser trailer for the audience at Comic-Con, which was leaked on TikTok, and so I did get to see like a grainy video of it a little bit.
Good
and it
stuff.
was kind of, it was kind of reminding me a little bit of the Fallout series that I talked about like a few weeks ago on this channel, because it's very like, Fallout, it takes place, it's about if the world ended in the 50s, but then like all these people were kind of living in vaults and pods, so civilization continued underground. But it's very much a 1950s aesthetic, like it's still very outdated technology. Everyone kind of has that keeping up with the Joneses mentality, and that was kind of the vibe that I was getting from this movie. It was very like a retro, like sci-fi epic that
a lot of clean, like from what I saw from stills of it, like pictures, a lot of like white, just like a lot of white, not in the way that we're talking about casting being too white, which is true, but the actual like aesthetic, it was very clean, like almost futuristic space, like futuristic but retro, if that makes sense. I don't know how to say it, but yeah, like it was kind of cool. I didn't see the trailer, I didn't know it leaked, but I did see like clips, pictures of it, which is another news thing in and of itself. This whole big craze of like Sean Levy is literally like posting all these like screenshots that fans are taking of the movie Deadpool and Wolverine, like retweeting them to his page, which is like very illegal. So I don't know. That's a whole discussion to get into in and of itself. So I don't love to like watch bootleg stuff, but I'm glad that some people saw it and that it looks good. And I don't love the title just because I think if this is the new Fantastic Four and like this is going to be our Fantastic Four, it almost feels like they should have just called it the Fantastic Four, because we've gotten Fantastic Four, we've gotten Fan Four Stick, we've gotten Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer, but like if they just called it the Fantastic Four, I think that kind of puts a stamp on like, this is it, this is the one. We finally got it, but like First Steps makes it almost seem like if it fails, well, it's just it's the first steps. It almost seems like a little bit of a cop-out, and just like because everyone needs to add a subtitle to everything nowadays, I'm like, why couldn't this just be the Fantastic Four? Or something along that line. Like it just feels like adding the subtitle is just there to add the subtitle. Like I feel like the first one can always kind of stand alone. Like look at Iron Man, Thor, Black Panther. Like it could just be that, and then in the future subsequent ones, it almost feels like they're making a prequel to a film that already exists because they put the subtitle, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's definitely giving prequel vibes, which makes me think like, where does this all kind of fall within?
Yeah, because we know it takes place in like
MCU.
the 50s or 60s. Like it's the closest thing to, I think, Captain Marvel after first Avengers, what I've gathered. Like it's between that. So it exists in that space. So
Mm,
will be interesting. But also with this multiverse, like who knows what that means. They could just pop up in our universe anyway. Like, and I think that's the
right.
problem in multiverse is that it's just like they can
Loophole.
kind of just put anyone anywhere at any time, and it like doesn't have any coherency. But I don't know. We need to talk about the Avengers though, because that was like the biggest announcement of the day. They announced Kang Dynasty is no more. It is now going to be
Mhm.
Doomsday and then Secret Wars. Those are going to be the next two. They announced the Russo brothers are officially returning. That was something that was heavily rumored. We talked about it. I was a little more trepidatious just based on their post MCU work, but
Mhm.
as two people who just kind of work for Feige and execute his vision, they've been doing a pretty good job. I would say I like, for the most part, all of their movies they've done in the MCU. I like the Avengers films more than the Captain America films they've done, but I still think they're all good, and a lot of people love all their films. So I think if
Mhm.
you're gonna kind of go for someone who's like a little safer that you can rely on to actually deliver, I think that's probably a good choice. Though I do think with that you lose a lot of like the artistic like singularity that someone like Sam Raimi, who was also rumored to potentially be directing Secret Wars, would bring. Like something that's very stylistic or very uniquely stylized. You're not necessarily going to get that with the Russo brothers, which is kind of why I'm like, okay. But I also
Mhm.
know with everything they've got to bite off, like how much can they chew? I think Russo brothers seems like, if you're gonna play it safe, and I don't want to say play it safe, but yeah, if you're gonna play it safe, that's the way to do it. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on the Russo brothers before we get into the next element of this?
Dill, it's very obvious that obviously Kevin Feige and the whole like MCU team just went back to the drawing board and they were like, all right, like let's go back to like day one, early stages,
Quite
early
literally.
phases, phase one, phase two. Like what worked? What made the beginning of this so successful? And I think that's why they're kind of pulling from the past a little bit because think about how successful not only Captain America Civil War was but also like just the success of Infinity War and Endgame. Like of course they
Yeah.
would want to pull those two directors because those movies were such box office hits, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I mean
Yeah.
I definitely this kind of reboot, almost revamp of the next stages doesn't bother me as much as the other one we're going to talk about because I feel like, with the MCU, like the Russo brothers are pretty safe hands to put anything MCU related into. I know that they haven't had great, smash hits outside of the MCU, but what they've done for the MCU has all been pretty successful and pretty well
Yeah.
liked. So I'm feeling pretty comfortable about this. I accept this
Yeah.
choice and I
And
respect
I don't think this is as much of a reek of desperation, because I don't think a lot of people are being like, "Oh, the Russos are back. I gotta get back into Marvel." I think it's more so
right.
like, how are we gonna get fans back in? We have to kind of give them something familiar that they've seen before, which for me I don't love just because it's like I want to see them push boundaries. I would rather a
Mhm.
failure that at least goes there, like kind of like Multiverse of Madness. I don't love that movie, but I appreciate what it did. Like it tried to go
Mhm.
bold, it tried to go big, same as like Eternals, which I do love. But like like all these movies that are trying to push the boundaries and go beyond just superhero filmmaking, like Doctor Strange has horror elements. Eternals feels like a heady, like cool, like futuristic, almost Malikian, sci-fi film. Like I like that, and I feel like this is just kind of backtracking into okay, what works, what's safe. But you're right. I think if they
Yeah.
need to rely on someone, and because admittedly, Infinity War, Endgame, Civil War, they're all kind of mini. Civil War is like a mini Avengers movie, but they're all Avengers movies that it's really Feige's vision that they're just kind of assembling. It's not like they're saying this is our creative stamp. It's like, what is our
Mhm.
job? We're going to execute it. And
Yeah.
that's different than someone like James Gunn, for example, who's like, this is what I want, this is what I want, this is what I want. I don't want you to interfere. And I love that. But it's also like it's two very
Mhm.
different styles of filmmaking. So if Feige really wants to say, you know what, I'm going to be hands-on about it, he should just call himself the director at this point. But I do think those are the two
Mm.
guys that are going to most carry out his vision. But I think we have to get to the next piece, which is obviously Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
Very, very good pivot. Let's talk about that first before we find out who's playing him. What are your thoughts
Okay.
hearing like, okay, this is who we're going to pivot to instead of Kang? Kang's kind of dead at this point. It seems like they might recast him. They said they might have a recasting. They never said it at Hall H though, so I assume Kang's kind of out of here, as Kelsey is as well. And she's coming back. There she is. The encyclopedia's back.
Sorry,
But like,
I kept meaning to go into my uh encyclopedia
Right.
and look more into Doctor Doom.
Well, you're gonna find out some things that are gonna piss you off probably even more when I tell you about him. But I
Oh,
do think,
tell me.
yeah, I do think it's very interesting because they really want to separate themselves from the Jonathan Majors of it all, and go for Doom, which I think makes the logical choice if you're bringing in the Fantastic Four because that is kind of their biggest opponent. And I think after Thanos and like Doc Ock and like not even Loki, I would say in the comics, like Doctor Doom's a bigger villain than Loki is. You know, I feel like after
Mhm.
Thanos, this is the next logical step if you want to try to outdo Thanos. The only villain who I think raises up to that bar in terms of notoriety is probably Doctor Doom. So, what are your thoughts on just Doom itself coming in terms of replacing Kang and just wiping the slate clean of Kang?
Wow, this is really interesting. Well, first of all, I think it's a good move. Because obviously, even if they had gone into the route of recasting Kang, I think that reputation is kind of tarnished a little bit. I don't think audiences would be able to get the bad taste out of their mouth that Jonathan Majors had left behind with that role. So I think that it's obviously a great pivot. I mean, I'm pretty much just skimming the page of his little biography right now, but he seems like a great direction to go into. It says that his powers, he can physically I mean or psychically transfer his consciousness into the body of another person, which is
Mm,
really interesting.
yeah.
That's definitely could be something really cool on screen because we don't know if it's going to be them or someone controlled by Doctor Doom, so that's kind of
Mhm.
interesting. Ooh. Okay, sorry, that just made me
Yeah,
think of
yeah.
the
Well, because
actor.
we did watch the two Fantastic Four movies, and Doctor Doom is like a central figure in those two. But does seem like a lot of people think that that is not the best interpretation of the character we've seen. So like, I'm really excited to
Right.
see like how dark and deep they can go for Doom because he is like literally probably the most iconic Marvel villain if you just look at like the grand scheme of comics. Like him, Magneto, Doc Ock, and Thanos are like the big four, I would say. And I might be forgetting someone else, but like those seem like to be the big ones in the comics that people are like most like, oh, okay, like shit's getting real, you know.
Yeah.
But I feel like we have to talk about it now. I feel like we got to rip the mask off, rip the band-aid
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So okay. Leading up to this, they did say that this was the only actor who could play the role, which we'll talk about that in a sec. B,
Mhm.
um, they did say Victor Von Doom. They did not say Doctor Doom. So this is not Tony Stark. This is Victor Von Doom. That's what Joe Russo said. So before everyone starts,
Mhm.
jumping down and saying, "Well, it's just going to be Tony Stark," they said Victor. They might be wrong. They might have misspoke, but it is Victor Von Doom. Um,
Yeah.
and then the greatest actor alive, which I think that part is the part I agree most with. The other two we'll talk about, but they did say the greatest actor alive, and then Robert Downey Jr. steps forward, takes off the mask, and reveals himself as Doom. Now, this was something that was apparently rumored. I didn't hear the rumors, so I didn't even know.
Mm-mm.
So it took me by hella surprise. We were on draft day recording when it happened, and I remember
Yes.
just getting the messages and needing to like swipe away from them because I was like, I can't, JD, not now, JD, because he kept sending me messages about it. But and I
Shout
love
out
JD, thank
JD.
you. But in our Discord, check our Discord, the Dope Pick Up Movie Network Discord. But my initial reaction was how, but then I was like, oh, multiverse, but also why?
Mhm.
And the more I thought about it, the more I think I hate it more and more and more. And this is
Yeah.
not saying Robert Downey Jr. would be a bad fit for the personality of a villain in the MCU, or even as just a villain in general. He is a great actor, but I think we have to look at who Victor Von Doom is, and also what this says about Marvel itself. And it's all its progressive thinking of we've got to expand further, we've got to build beyond, we got to grow past the past. We're assembling the future, only to go back to their star that they know can make the money because I guess they feel like they've lost so much of the fan base that the only way to get him back is let's bring back Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Let's bring back Robert Downey Jr., not as Iron Man, but as another role. It just feels so desperate to where it just feels like, here you go, fans. Like, he's back. Come back to us. That's what I'm getting out of this. And I'm not sure if you feel the same way, but I'd love to know if you don't. Why? Because I'm just, this does not, like, I really can't believe that this is the only actor you could find. Like, it just comes across so desperate to me. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Kelsey, what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
My initial reaction to finding out about this via or like on draft day, as you said, was I wanted to groan so, like, viscerally and loudly, like, I just felt like,
And
"Ugh,"
we
like
like Robert Downey Jr. It has nothing to do with
yeah,
him. It's
yeah,
the decision to cast him. Just to blanket
yeah.
statement. Robert Downey Jr., we love you so much, but continue.
Then I was shocked because I didn't think that RDJ was ever gonna touch the MCU ever again. Like, I never thought that he was coming back for a
Because he
cameo. I
said
didn't
it.
even
Because he said it. He
yeah,
literally said it during the Oppenheimer press tour. He said, "It's so nice to be able to make, like, more, like, creative projects now that I'm, like, free, essentially." And not to be
yeah,
disparaging toward it, but he was like, "No, it's nice to, like, be able to make kind of, like, grown-up movies." Not and that's not the exact
yeah.
quote, but it's also like and it kinda comes across now like maybe he just said that to get his Oscar, because now he's like, "Now I'm a movie
Mm,
star again." But, there's also
mm,
something to be said. Apparently, it came out that apparently the only reason he agreed to do it is if they paid him $80 million, which, like, hey, if you're gonna set your standards high, 80 million is a good way to go. He said, "I want $80 million, and the Russos are the only people I'm gonna come back to the MCU for." And that's
mm,
probably why they brought the Russos in. I think that has a lot to do
mm.
with it. And I think, honestly, good for him for holding his ground and saying, "Hey, if you want me, this is my standard." It's a little egotistical, but, like, that is RDJ. Like, that's why we love him. And also, like, he has so much avenues to do whatever he wants that, like, to return to this
Yeah,
franchise in a move of desperation, he really needs to make it worth it, both financially and creatively. And I don't blame him for saying, "I want this amount of money and I want the Russos back," because, like, I don't think he wants to come back. I think this was Marvel really being like, "You really need to come, please, please. We have this great idea," and him being like, "Well, here's my stipulations. Like, this is what I want." That's my thinking of it. I don't think he walked up to them and said, "I have this great idea. How about I come back as Doom?" Like, I really don't think that
yeah,
was his idea. But
yeah,
I don't know.
no.
Maybe it was. Maybe we'll find out more because apparently Hugh Jackman's the one who came up with the Wolverine return. So I really don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
But continue your thought process.
Uh, but yeah, so I wanted to roll my eyes, I wanted to groan, and then I was shocked. And now I'm just kind of in the phase of like, so what is this going to turn into? Like, is this really just going to be Robert Downey Jr. as a completely different role, no ties to Tony Stark whatsoever, or is it going to be like a red herring where it's like he's this variant, but then someone else is going to be like the real big baddie, or is it like,
And in that case,
you
I
know what
think
I
it's more
mean?
desperate because then it's literally like we have this actor that we are casting as Doctor Doom, but we don't have faith that the audience is going to either want them or the audience is going to come out and pay for the money to see the movie. So instead, let's get
Mm,
people to come into the theater, give them RDJ, and then bait and switch and say, "Just kidding. This is who it is." And I think that is the dirtiest move of all, if that is what they go with, because it's like now there's another actor who's probably so excited to play Doctor Doom who's not going to get that glory of the press tour and all these things because RDJ is kind of stealing the spotlight. And then if they do the bait and switch, there's going to be a lot of fans who are probably upset saying, "What the fuck? I wanted to see more RDJ." So it's like I
yeah.
feel like that's a lose-lose in that case because then this new actor doesn't get the spotlight and this old actor is going to piss people off if they just immediately get rid of him after one movie. Like, that's
Right.
originally what my thought was too. Is like they're using this to announce the real Doctor Doom in the MCU, but then Joe Russo says the one and only. So then I'm thinking,
Right.
so this is it. I think that's the thing is the terminology Joe Russo used. The one and only actor who could play Victor Von Doom. And the Victor part is important too, because I don't know if it says in your encyclopedia, but Victor Von Doom is of Romani descent. So they
Yeah.
whitewash this role as well. And that's another thing I don't think anyone's, and a lot of people are saying, well, the movies could be different than the comics. Look at the Mandarin. The Mandarin was a funny comedic twist. This is announcing your big villain for the next phase of the MCU. I think that's a big difference. And I also think, having gotten Aman Vellani in the MCU, who has been a big advocate of like, oh, I can't wait for Doom to join the MCU because now we can get an actor of Romani descent in a huge villain role. Like, what's she gonna do? Because now it's her hero, but he's taking a role that could go to a real Romani actor, and that's the kind of thing I'm confused about. If this is merely to just kind of get people in the seats to then announce the real Doctor Doom, I just feel like that feels a little dirty. And if this is the Doctor Doom, it just sucks that like we're not giving more opportunities to people of color and also just making it fresh. Like, give us a fresh new lens, especially with this whole first steps thing. First steps, but also back steps. Like, you're walking back into what was safe. You're not trying to take risks and move forward. Like, sure, like
Mhm.
Kang was a failure, but that doesn't mean the next actor's gonna be. I don't know. Continue. Sorry, I just keep butting because I'm just so frustrated about it. It's so frustrating to me.
It is really frustrating. And like back to the conversation we were having about the Russo brothers deal, yeah, I guess I'm comfortable with the product that the Russo brothers will be able to pop out the same way that I'm comfortable with, like, the performance that RDJ is going to give it as this role. But like you said, it totally squashes like any progress that they made, any move they made towards like, including, like more women, more diversity, things like that. Like it just completely diminishes all of that because they were like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality.
Exactly.
And I think we have to remember that me and you, like, we're very much in the minority when it comes to liking movies like Eternals and how artistic and special the work Chloe Zhao did on that film. And I just wish that they would, like, I just feel like they gave these shots to like these women and these people of color to like, have their chance at, making it big in the MCU. And because like all of those projects were deemed as like flops from the fandom, now they're like, see, it doesn't work. Like, we gotta go back.
Yet Nia DaCosta's Candyman is one of the greatest horror films of the last 5 years, and Chloe Zhao's Nomadland literally wins Best Picture. Meanwhile, the Russo brothers made shit like Cherry and The Gray Man. Like, I don't know. I think there's a double standard. But I will say, in the MCU, the Russos have success. That's fine. But it's like, another thing that I'm struggling with is a lot of people are saying, well, this is a new character. So, like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't tarnish Iron Man's legacy. But here's the thing. If RDJ comes in, let's say he does give a bad performance, or let's say Doom ends up being like a flop of a character and we're unsatisfied, I think that will tarnish a little bit of the ending Iron Man had. It's not the same character, but like, look at Hugh Jackman in Wolverine and Deadpool or whatever it's called. Like he is playing a new version of Logan. It's not the same Logan that died in Logan, but by having the same face as him, I am watching it thinking of Logan. It's hard not to separate it. If you cast a new actor, that's different. But when you're looking at the same person, yes, it's a different version, but it still looks the same, talks the same, acts the same, to where I'm immediately in the back of my head just going, this was such a perfect ending. Why are they ruining it? Why are they ruining it? And I think it's the same thing here. It's like and I get it. Dr. Doom has a mask, but then if he has a mask the whole time, then why even cast Robert Downey Jr. to begin with?
Right.
And I think that's the thing is they want him as Victor to then become Dr. Doom, and that's another problem because Victor is Romani. Like if it was just a guy in a suit, like a Darth Vader thing where you never really see his face, RDJ could be like a fun little nod. Like guess who's in that costume? But I really just I don't know. I think it's severely scary. I don't know. I'm just struggling with it. I'm struggling because I know he's going to give a good performance. I think. I assume, but it's like at what cost? Like, I don't know. It would be like if they did this new Harry Potter thing that they're doing for Max. They're making this new Harry Potter series, and they just were like, we just can't find a good enough actor to play Harry, so we're going to de-age Daniel Radcliffe and bring him back. It's like, why? Why are you doing that?
Right.
I don't know.
I don't know, based off of, which is crazy because I'm like, RDJ, like you just got your Oscar, like you can literally do anything. You can do anything.
Well, I think that's why his price point was so high because he probably doesn't want to do that. I think he probably is excited to work with the Russos again and like get that paycheck. But I doubt if you give him like 10 projects and this is one of the 10, he's gonna pick this one first. I think the money, yes, the directors maybe, but like. I think if you were to say like, oh, Scorsese wants you as the lead of his film, or Spielberg wants you as the film of his film, like, I just can't assume that this is what he wants to do with the rest of his life. Like, I think he's finally found that he can go beyond it. And Oppenheimer isn't even his greatest performance outside the MCU. Kiss Kiss Bang Bang is, but like he could go back to that too. Like, there's so many different avenues he could go with, and he won an Oscar for a role that was really good. He could go even bigger and better. I think. I don't know. Again, the jury's still out. And I know we have to wait to see. We have to watch it, and maybe we're going to be surprised. And that's a good thing. It's like we could be surprised, and I could be eating my words out. But as an initial reaction, this is just how I feel, and I just can't shake it.
The only sliver of silver lining that I am getting from this still is that he seems to interact with Reed Richards a lot, so it could very well tie into like the Fantastic Four stuff, which I think could be interesting.
Yeah, well, I assume they announced it now because I assume he'll show up in Fantastic Four, even if it's a cameo or post-credit. And if he goes to the Fantastic Four set, the rumors are going to go raw wild. So they probably wanted to squash it now before people were like, RDJ on the Fantastic Four set. That's my thinking.
Right.
Yeah, I just think also now, I just think whenever people are going to go see Fantastic Four now, they're going to be waiting to see RDJ as Doctor Doom. I don't think they're going to be going for the Fantastic Four as much now because they want to see what they're going to do with Doom. And that's been a big problem I've had with the MCU is like everyone's going to the MCU movies to see what the next one's going to be. And it's like, can you just live in this one? Can you just enjoy this one?
Right.
It's like, and I'm guilty of it too, because I was like, oh, maybe this is going to be a chance for Deadpool and Wolverine to tell us who the new X-Men are. And spoiler alert, they don't. But like that was kind of naive on my part too, because I'm like, why can't I just enjoy this? Why do I have to think about who the new X-Men are going to be? But at the same time, like, I feel like a lot of people are going to be going to Fantastic Four to be like, oh, I want to see Doom. And it's like, ugh. But again, it's going to sell money. It's going to get them tickets. I think it's a good move financially for sure. I think a lot of fans are going to come back to the MCU because of it. So, I mean, maybe they're doing it right. If money is their one goal and artistic ambition is not, then yes, money, they got it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything else?
Well,
anything else on this? I was ranting so much. I'm ready to talk about something fun and lighthearted now.
Yeah, seriously. I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and we will just have to wait and see what it all is.
Yeah.
That's how I feel at this point.
If you have thoughts on this news, let us know in the comments. If you are a defender of this news, if you think this is a great idea, let us know why, because I genuinely want to hear the people, aside from financially. If financially is the only reason, yes, I agree. It's a good idea financially to do this. But in terms of artistic merit and whitewashing, like, let us know why you think this might be a good choice. Not to say you're ashamed of feeling that way either, but I just think it's very interesting to hear people's opinions on why they might think that this is a successful turn and pivot, especially taking into consideration Joe Russo said he's the one and only, meaning there's probably not going to be another Doom, at least according to Joe Russo, there's not. And they did say Victor, so he is playing the Romani character, Victor Von Doom. He's not Tony Stark as Dr. Doom. Take that what you will. Maybe Joe Russo misspoke, but I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. But let's get into something more fun, Kels. Let's get into your top 10. Why don't you introduce this topic and give your intro as to like what you came about this list, like how you came about this list.
Well, so we're ranking our top 10 funniest MCU moments. I was just in the mood to talk about comedy, being that we're off the heels of Deadpool and Wolverine, which was a very funny movie. And so I kind of just like skimmed the MCU and just like saw if like any particular moments that stuck out to me. Obviously, a couple came to me right off the bat, and I knew that they had to definitely make the list. But then there's also, I have a really weird list still. Like I'm probably going to bring up moments that you don't even remember, but they were funny to me.
It's tough because I limited it to one per film because I wanted to kind of spread the wealth. I didn't, because I'll be honest, I made a list of like 12 and 10 of the 12 were Drax or Mantis. So I had to literally say, okay. So I actually made a separate top 10 of just Drax and Mantis stuff. Yeah, I literally just made a separate top 10, which I'll get to later. But then I said, you know what, I'm only going to do one per movie or one per, like, you know, franchise or something, just because I wanted to spread the wealth, just because it's so hard. You could pull all of them from just Deadpool and Guardians alone. But also, I also wanted to think about like moments that genuinely made me laugh, not just like, haha, that was funny, or like witty, because there's some really witty stuff in the MCU, and there's actually more wit than there is actually laugh out loud, because I was going through and I was like, I'm really not laughing out loud for a lot of this stuff. It's like, that's funny. But I want to go for like what actually had me chuckle, like, I want the 5. I want all that. I don't want, that's 2. I want the 5 laugher, not the 2. So that's kind of what I'm going with. And every single one on this list is something that I like genuinely laughed at. Maybe my number 10 is something I chuckled at, but like I really struggled to come up with 10 like laugh out loud moments. But I'm excited to hear where you at, because I also think you are such a deeper encyclopedic mind of this stuff that like you're probably gonna bring up stuff and I'll be like, that's right. Because I actually asked like Stacy and Matt and Corey before this. I was like, what are some funny MCU moments? And they brought up some that like made my list because I forgot about them. So I'm hoping you bring up some that I forgot about. And I have 10. I have an 11th if my number 2 doesn't count, because I have a number 2. If you say it doesn't count, I have backup. But do you want to start off with? Or do you want me to start off so you can end it? I feel like I want to hear yours. I like save the best for last, because your moments are probably funnier. Unless you want to start.
No, you can start. I will say I made a list of 13, and I plan on talking about 11, 12, and 13 as honorable mentions.
Okay, well, why don't you start with those then? Why don't you start with 11, 12, and 13 as your honorable?
Okay. So my 13th funny moment that I have from the MCU is I have a combination of laugh out loud, but also things that I just like recognize as funny and things that I didn't find funny like before, but now I watch them and I'm like, wait, that was actually really funny. Um, okay, so number 13 is when Caecilius and Doctor Strange meet for the first time in Doctor Strange, and he's trying to tell him his name, and he's like, oh, he's like, what are you doing, mister? And he's like, it's doctor. And he's like, okay, Mr. Doctor. And then Steven is like, no, it's strange. And then Caecilius is like, yeah, it might be, but who am I to judge? Like they have this whole miscommunication, which I love that style of comedy where one person is talking about one thing and the other person's talking about the other, and they're just misaligning the entire
It's
time.
like the Abbott Costello, like who's on first?
Who's on first?
Oh,
exactly.
Who's on third? Yeah. Love that.
Yeah, exactly. Who's on first? Yes. Yeah, exactly. That whole conversation. My number 12 is, I don't know. I think I want to save this to hear what's on your list because I feel like it's going to be on your list.
Well, I'll tell you if it's on my list and we'll save it for later then.
Okay. My number 12 is the memory moment from the Marvels.
Yep, save it for later.
Okay. And then my number 11 is just the post-credit scene of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings when Katie, Sean, and Wong sing karaoke together.
Oh, that's good. I didn't think of that. Yeah, very good. Yeah. Very good start.
Thank you.
All right, my number 10. This is one I didn't think about until Matt actually brought this one up. So I'm going to give a shout out to Matty Fresh here, Matt Chapman.
Awesome.
It's a moment in Loki where Mobius is eating his salad and Loki just starts just showing the time stuff by putting the salt and pepper in it and just
yeah.
Salad. That's kind of one that I more chuckle at than I laugh out loud, but it's just such an amusing physical gag. I feel like visual humor is not always the MCU's thing. It's more about banter and wit and quips, whereas I think this is like a purely visual gag and then kind of Mobius's reaction to it. So I like it a lot. Matt brought it up and I was like, you know what? I want more TV rep because everything else is films. This is my only TV representation. So I was very excited to get this on there. I was like, you know what? I'm glad this is acceptable because I don't have a lot of TV options, at least that I could think of. So I was like, you know what? This is like the funniest of the TV moments, I think, because the TV shows are generally pretty serious. There's some Bucky and Falcon stuff that Stacey brought up, but like that stuff didn't make me laugh as much. But like this stuff, I did laugh the first time I watched this. So Loki ruining Mobius's salad is my number 10. What is your number 10, Kels?
As far as the TV shows went, the only thing that I wrote down from Falcon and the Winter Soldier was Zemo dancing. Just because the TV shows are so like there's so many episodes and I didn't want to skim through them all to find funny moments, and I figured if I wasn't thinking of them right away, then they probably weren't that funny. Yeah. But that to say,
I was just gonna say Stacey did mention also the like not pushing up the car seat far enough, and then when they're in therapy and the therapist is trying to get them closer together.
Oh yeah, that's a good moment too.
It's silly, it's funny. It's just not quite.
Yeah. Right. No, but that is a good gag. All that to say, my number 10 is actually not from a TV show, but it is from a special. It is from the Guardians Holiday Special, and it's when Drax and Mantis get Kevin Bacon onto the ship, and they realize that he's just like a dude. Like, he's not like this cool superhero or does anything special. He's just an actor. So they start like telling him, like Mantis has him under a trance, so he starts pretending to be other people. And she's like, she literally says something along the lines of like, no, just be Kevin Bacon, but if you didn't suck.
Yeah. No,
it makes me laugh every time.
I don't know how to talk about this without spoiling like my number one pick. So like we'll talk a lot more about Drax and Mantis later. Their banter and their whole Guardians Holiday Special stuff, like it's so good. It's hard to find moments for them because everything they do is funny. I love it. Kind of something that's similar to like Mantis style humor. Cassie Lang, man, she got jokes. She got charm. She got Riz. First Ant-Man when he brings her the ugly ass bunny.
Yeah.
And she goes, he's so ugly. I love him. That's just such a great like little moment too, because like, you know, it plays to the whole theme of, you know, Scott being a good dad, but everyone else sees him as like this bad dude and stuff. And like, you know, Bobby Cannavale's watching him, he's like, well, why'd you get her that bunny? And then she's got this like wide-eyed amazement. It reminds me of like the little girl from
Yeah.
Despicable Me in a way. Yeah, just such a
Yeah.
cute moment, and seriously funny because it's like that bait and switch. You don't expect it going that direction. It's like kind of that style of
Mhm.
humor where it just kind of like takes that last minute pivot, and you're like, oh, haha, she likes it. You know,
Yeah.
because most kids would be like, Dad, what the hell? It's so ugly. And
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
ugly. I love him. It's just a great little play there. And that's another one that's like more quippy and more like chuckly than like full laugh out loud. Once we get to number 8, that's where I'm like laughing out loud. But this is like still
Okay.
another one that I'm like really sweet, funny moment. And because she's a kid, like I love when kids can deliver comedy because a lot of kids are terrible actors. So you know, it's just fair. They just haven't
Yeah.
grown the skills yet.
Right.
But she. Abby Ryder-Fort's a really great actress. If you haven't seen Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. She's great in it. And
Yeah.
she's great in this one moment, one line. So giving her the shout out.
Yeah, I'm glad that Cassie Lang is represented on this list. That's a great moment, Dill. Okay,
What's your
so
number
my
9?
my number 9 might be kind of disappointing. It might be later on your list. I'm sure people might hear me say this and groan collectively because they're like, "What? That's one of the funniest moments ever. It should be number 1." My number 9 is Why is Gamora from Infinity War. I just feel like this is a very like quotable quote when this movie came out. Everyone loved this moment. It is very, very funny. I will give it that. There's just other things that I find funnier in the MCU. And
Yeah,
looking
I
back
think
on it, I'm like,
yeah.
it doesn't hold up
It's been
really
quoted
anymore.
so much too. It's been quoted so
Yeah,
much too that I feel
quoted
like
to death.
in the moment, if you were talking about like moments in the moment that were like just like hilarious, is probably like 1 or 2. Like it really is like one
Yeah.
of those moments that when you watch it for the first time, you're like, that is so fucking funny. But now I get it. Like it's like we've said it so many times. It's not on my list proper, but again, it's kind of like you'll see.
Okay.
I don't know if
Okay.
you know what I'm going for, but
Okay.
yeah,
All right.
like I said, there's a whole separate top 10 to get to later. But my number 8
Okay.
is just it was hard to find like a moment, but it's kind of just the whole scaffolding banter between the 3 Peters in No Way Home. Do you have that on your list? No.
Oh,
So it gets confusing because it's like I couldn't think of a one moment. It's the combination of the talking about the sticky stuff to
yeah.
the cracking his back hurting, which is a great Easter egg, and then the Peter 3, all that is like my favorite stuff in that movie. Like, because it is
Yeah.
just genuinely funny because those actors are genuinely funny. Because Toby's usually not funny, and I think him playing the straight man with Tom Holland just kind of like quippy, annoying little guy, and then like Andrew Garfield just being genuinely funny. Like, I think the blend of all
Yeah.
three of them is really great. So just like all their banter in that fight specifically, where they're just kind of like regrouping Peter 1, Peter 2, Peter 3, like all that stuff.
Yeah,
is so
yeah,
good.
yeah.
It's mostly due to Garfield, but like really all 3 of them together really makes it work. There's a lot of moments you could pick from that movie with the 3 of them, but I think
Yeah.
it's that collection of moments where they're like at the top of that scaffolding and like all the like gray CGI muck is like happening behind them. I think like that
Yeah.
stuff is great, especially because the gray CGI muck I hate and hate and hate. Their funny banter kind of makes that scene for me. So I love the 3 of them and just their interaction, their charisma, and just seeing them again for so it's been so long. I'm kind of hypocritical in this way, but I love seeing them all banter. I know I'm hypocritical because I hate cameos and shit, but like, yeah, I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
So I can't get enough of that banter.
Also, the moment where Andrew Garfield is like, "I love you guys," and then they just
Yeah.
go, "Thank you."
Yeah, like that is included as well. Like all that stuff is
Ugh.
so good. And again, Andrew, I think is one of the best actors ever. So very exciting. What's your-
Peter 3, oh, that's a really good moment. I remember thinking about that really early on, but I forgot to write it down. So I don't know how different my list would have been if I remembered about it. But I'm glad you got it. It's
we'll just
represented
bring up
on
more
your
things.
list.
That's good. Yeah.
So my number 8, going along the lines of like things that might have been quoted to death, is "That's America's ass" from Avengers Endgame.
Okay.
I mean, I remember like watching that. Obviously, we saw Endgame together, opening night, very exciting stuff. And I remember that being like genuinely one of the funniest things I've ever heard because it just felt so like out of pocket. And that movie is so serious and so like just such a downer for most of the time that to have Paul Rudd really lighten it up with everything that he was saying and doing was like really, really refreshing the whole time. And to just say something like kind of vulgar about Captain America, who's always been this like really stoic character in the MCU,
Yeah.
like really, turned me on my head a little bit. And it's a great quote. That's
Yeah, I
America's
mean,
ass.
again, it's one of those moments like Why is Gamora, where I feel like the first time I saw it, it would have been on the list. Now, having revisited it, it's not quite there for me. But like again, it's a great
Mhm.
moment. It's also because it's Paul Rudd and he's just got so much charm and charisma. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a great pick. I mean, there's so many great little endgame things that's probably the movie of the MCU I've seen the most. So like that kind of stuff. Like I didn't have anything from Endgame on my list just because it's just so I've seen it so many times that the humor that's tough with humor too, is like some jokes just aren't funny after a while.
Mhm.
But that one's a good one. That was a good one.
Thank
Number
you.
seven for me. Sorry, number seven for me. It's recency bias, which is why it's not higher. But I thought of like just the funniest moment of Deadpool and Wolverine for me is Bye Bye Bye. I think because of the
Okay.
dancing, because of just like the shock value of like seeing this skeleton of Logan like being the weapon he's used, this adamantium skeleton. It's kind of fucked
Yeah.
up in a funny way. It's like it almost feels James Gunnish. It's just so
Mm.
fucked up but so funny in that way. And I think just the cuts of him like fighting and then just like immediately dancing to it. It's like, oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm loving it all. And again, I was really worried that like that was going to lose me because on draft day I said if they open the film where he like digs up Logan, again I'm spoiling it because it's in the first 2 minutes, so I'm not spoiling it. And if you haven't seen it, you're probably not watching this video anyway. But
Yeah.
I was like I was saying in draft day, I was like if they dig him up and they like just it's a skeleton or whatever, but I think they actually did it the best way they could to like show like what the tone of at least a lot of the movie was going to be. So yeah, Bye Bye Bye. That's a great opening sequence, and I was genuinely, you heard me in the theater, I was laughing. I was genuinely like, I'm sorry, getting over sickness, but I was genuinely having a great time during that. So
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
number seven. I wish I could put it higher. When I revisit it, it might go higher, but just not, And I think when I think moments, like I think like moments, whereas this is like a scene almost. So
Mhm.
it's number seven.
It's all right. Good pick. I don't know if that's necessarily what I would have picked from Deadpool and Wolverine, but it's a very, very funny sequence.
Yeah. Did you pick
Um,
any of your Deadpool movie?
I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I didn't.
Interesting.
I don't know. I didn't.
I had an honorable mention from it as well, but I don't want to say because it might be a spoiler. But it involves a
Spoiler.
very funny accent. Um, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm about to make a name for myself. Yeah. We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
See, there you go. All right, what's your number seven?
Who is your dialect coach? The
Right.
Minions?
Yeah, yeah.
My number 7 is from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. It is when, Rocket is so desperately trying to explain to Groot what button to push on the bomb, and then he's like, "Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna put tape over the button." And so now him and, Quill are having this whole yelled conversation back and forth where they're like, "Hey, Quill, do you have tape?" And he's like, "Okay, let me, I don't know, I don't have tape. Let me go ask them." And then he like has this whole sequence of going through each guardian, asking them for tape. And then he's like, "You are the one that would have tape more than any of us here. Like you came with a backpack." And so then, obviously Groot then just like takes off with the bomb, ends up
Yeah.
pressing the right button. But it was that moment makes me laugh so hard. It's the dynamic and the contrast between them like yelling about tape to them having this full-blown fight for their lives out like off screen that we don't even see.
Yeah.
Like the screen is just always on Rocket and
True.
Groot, which I think is
Yeah.
even makes it even better.
Yeah, no, I love that moment. It was hard for me for Guardians to like single out a moment for those movies because there are just so many good ones. But yeah,
Yeah.
I almost forget about all the Groot stuff because I love the Drax stuff so much and the Manta stuff. But like, yeah,
Mm.
I mean, it's such a great moment and so funny. Another moment with adorable little critters. Number 6 is where I put Memory from the Marvels.
Mm.
Again, it's more of a scene than a moment, but again, that scene is just so. I just remember just not really knowing how to react in the moment and being like, "This is either my favorite thing ever or my least favorite thing ever." And I think with time, it might become my favorite thing ever in the MCU. I really just I loved it so much. You saw me in the theater. I was laughing my ass off. I think
Yeah.
it's just one of those perfect needle drop, perfect moments. Cats are adorable, but also they're like eating these humans, which is like saving them, but also like very morbidly graphic in how they're doing it. Because it
Yeah.
looks like they're just like eating them alive.
Yeah.
Just the one shot. Oh my god, I'm laughing now. Where she's like sitting there and she thought she's like escaped, and then she looks and the cat's just like sitting there, and then she's like, oh no, and then it's just like, ugh. Like I don't know. I
Yeah,
love it.
yeah, yeah.
So, like I can't think that this is like Nia, like I hope Nia DaCosta, this was all her idea because it is so funny. Like I don't know who gets the credit for this moment, but it's
Yeah.
so funny. It's so funny. So I was
Yeah,
trying to say
Jill.
fucking funny, but I combined the words. I said so fucky. But no,
So
so fucking
fucky.
funny. So good.
Yeah,
Anyway,
we
what
were
are
in
your
the
thoughts on
we
memory?
saw
You brought
this
up in honorable mentions, yeah.
we saw this together, Dill, and I don't remember really processing that Memory was the song that was even playing in the background. You caught it before I did, so you just started losing it next to me, and I was like, "Wait, what am I missing?" And then I
When the
heard the
intro started, yeah.
"Touch me," and I was like, "Oh, okay, Cats. Got it, got it, got it, got it." Yeah. So
Yeah.
I wrote this down. I was like, since and then you losing it made me laugh even more because I was like, "Oh my god, Dill's loving this so much." So I kind of wrote it down more like in memory of you, if you will, of you.
In memory
So,
of me, because I'm dead.
not that you're dead, but
Knock
my
on wood.
number 6
This doesn't
is
release
a
tomorrow.
Sorry. Okay. All right, listen, nothing bad's going to happen in the next 24 hours.
No.
My number 6 is a moment from Ant-Man that is so funny. I definitely wanted to get Luis represented on my list somewhere because he's a very funny character. Missed him in Quantum Mania. And it's the moment in the first Ant-Man where Dave, Kurt, and Luis all drive to the scene of the crime where it's Scott's house and the big Thomas the Tank engine truck has just like crashed through the window and all this like stuff is happening. The cops are there, SWAT team, firemen, whatever. And because they're technically like fugitives on the run a little bit, they drive up to the scene. They're like, "We're ready to help you, Scott. We're gonna come into battle for you." And then they see the cops, and they're like, "Oh, okay. We're just gonna back it up out of here. Just back it up. We're just gonna back it up. We're just backing it up." And he just like keeps saying it over and over again, and it's just so funny. Like I hope it was just like a great improv moment. That's what it feels like,
Mhm.
at least. And it really makes me really like tickles that spot in my brain that loves humor like that. So I
Yeah.
like that moment.
I'll be honest, I can't really recall the moment because I just don't watch that movie a lot. But like that's
Yeah.
the thing, you're an encyclopedia, so like I'm excited to go back and watch it. I like Luis. He's never been my favorite, but I know you really like him, so I'm glad you got him on the list. Number
you.
5, this was a moment inspired by Stacey. I had a different Ragnarok moment on my list, but then when she brought this one up, I was like, no, this one's funnier. It's when he's like, I forget what he's saying. Like, this is what heroes are made of, or something. He has a ball and he throws it toward the window, and it just immediately smacks him in the face and knocks him over. It's such a small moment, but it's one of those things that will always get me laughing, like every moment. And when Stacey brought it up, I looked it up again, and I was like, oh yeah, this is hilarious. Because he just like hits it so hard, it's so fast too. It doesn't like, it's not like he throws it off and then like a few seconds later, it's like shoot, boom, you know. I love that. It's just a great visual gag. It's probably my shortest moment on my list, but it's a great moment.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I wanted to get something from Thor Ragnarok because that movie is very funny. But I don't know. I just like comparing it to all the other moments that I just liked more. It just ended up not really making, probably in my top 20. If I made a top 20, there'd definitely be some Thor Ragnarok.
Originally on my list was Get Help, but
yeah.
Yeah, right? Like
yeah. My number 5 is actually maybe another bit that you probably don't remember as viscerally as I do, Dill, just because this is probably another movie that you don't watch often. And it's a lesser known movie released in 2010 by the name of Iron Man 2. And so so in the opening it's not the opening, but it's in the moment where Tony's racing in the race in Monaco and whip racing in the race, you know.
As one does.
Whiplash has, entered the arena. He's making his way down the racetrack, just like whipping his little whips. And Happy and Pepper both come racing down the track in, Happy's like security car. And they crash and he hits Whiplash, and then Tony, Happy, and Pepper all just have this screaming, yelling, panic argument to one another, while this guy is like stuck in between the hood of the car and the fence, and he runs up to Happy and he's like, "I'm sorry, were you headed for him or were you trying to get me? Because I can't tell." And then Pepper's just in the back freaking out, like, "Are you out of your mind? Get in the car!" And he's like, oh, and it's just so much chaos, and it's just like one of
Yeah.
those like beautiful moments of just like Happy is still trying to like crush him with his car. Pepper is like screaming her head off, and Tony's just like, all right, give me the case, like give me the case. And then
I have no recollection of any of this, and I can't wait to watch it because it sounds so good.
It's one of those moments where everyone is so serious in the moment that it builds up to make something so like comedically genius, where it's just like it's such good like situational comedy. And I really like it a lot. I
love it.
Yeah. That's my
I need to watch Iron Man 2 again, I guess. I plan to do like a rewatch in the next like few months just so we can like talk about some of these movies more in depth, because like I couldn't tell you 10 things that happened in Iron Man 2, to be honest. That's why I host trivia and I don't play it. All right. Number 4 for me, all-time great moment. It was on a lot of lists when I looked up for some inspiration. It was I am Groot. I am Steve Rogers. So good.
Oh,
perfect moment.
That's such a good moment.
And it's one that is still funny every single time. Like I can't get enough of it. It's so good. This actually is the smallest moment on my list, but it's one of the best. It's my top 4. I love it. So good. That's all.
Oh my God, I love that. Yeah, I was kind of just like, that's definitely funny. I like that moment a lot, but I think for me, I was just overwhelmed with the fact that like my 2 favorite characters were interacting with one another.
Right.
So I was like, they're talking to each other. So I kind of didn't even register what Steve had said. But Steve is just so pure to just like look at him and go, I am Steve Rogers. Like, that's so good.
It's a hand. Okay. It's a hand. Like, yeah, so good.
Love him.
All right, what's your number 4?
Okay, so my number 4 might be the same vibes as your number 1/2. I don't know which one you were alluding to, where you're like, I don't know if it's going to count. So I kind of just have like Trevor Slattery just like as a whole, like just like the whole performance of Trevor Slattery. Oh my God, Trevor Slattery. I went back and I watched Iron Man 3 because I wanted a specific moment from him, but just the entire sequence of him explaining who he is, and he's like, hey, it's not real. I'm just a guy, and I was on drugs at the time. They came to me with an offer, and Tony's like, okay, and they told you they'd get you off of them, and he's like, no, promise me more, actually. And then there's the whole sequence between him, Rhodey, and Trevor, where he's watching then the football game on the TV, and he just starts like cheering out of nowhere. And he's like, ole, 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 ole. And Rhodey's like, I'm going to punch this guy in the face. Like, what are we, like, who is this guy? And then he has great stuff in Shang-Chi as well. Actually, I changed my mind. My number 3 moment is a specific moment in Shang-Chi because I love this moment so much. And it's when they're driving through the Forbidden Forest. That's what it's called in Harry Potter. The Forbidden Forest to get to the hidden village of Ta Lo. Yeah. And he just keeps saying, stay in the pocket, stay in the pocket. That's my number 3 moment. Specifically
so Trevor Slattery, number 3. Yeah, I love that. Yes. I didn't think of, honestly, I thought of him as we were recording this. I was like, I didn't have Trevor Slattery. I think it's a amusing idea, less so like a laugh out loud funny for me, but like, yeah, a great little bait and switch in Iron Man 3. Great appearance in Shang-Chi. He really is a great comedic relief, especially with Ben Kingsley, who's usually playing these like really dramatic, serious, Schindler's List and Gandhi, and now he's like doing this shit. It's great. Great pick. My number 3 might, depending on the day, be my number 1. The whole scene in Avengers Age of Ultron where they're like at the party and they're talking, you got the Rhodey, boom, looking for this, the lifting of the hammer, but there's a specific moment in that scene where Bruce tries to lift the hammer. He just starts like just growling like the Hulk, but he's a human, and he just starts, he goes, and Scarlet or Black Widow's just like, we're just gonna pretend that didn't happen. Like,
okay.
Oh my God, not a good episode to do when I have like a lung infection. But like, that is such a funny moment because everyone has their own thing of like lifting the hammer. It's amusing. It's like everyone tries to lift the hammer or whatever. It's funny. Cap slightly moves it. Thor looks, Rhodey's quipping with the boom, you're looking for this, but then you just have Bruce trying to lift it. He's like, it's the funniest. You see, that is my favorite Bruce moment. I love it so much, and I love how Scarlet gets like that last little jab at him afterward. Because it's funnier than all the stuff in Infinity War where he's like trying to turn the Hulk and he can't. Like that's just kind of sad. This one's just funny because he's just like, it's the moment after he tries to lift the hammer that is just the best thing in his whole filmography. I love it. So yeah,
Dill, I'm laughing for a couple reasons because your retelling of it is funnier than I think the actual moment. And number two, it's funny to me that you bring this up and that it's so close to the top of your list because this is a moment that I thought of like when I was just going through the phases and I was like reading, okay, Ant-Man, Age of Ultron, I was going through the movies. Literally this moment popped out in my head when I got to Age of Ultron. And I was like, yeah, there's no way that moment is going anywhere near my list because I always find it so cringy and awkward. And I guess that can be part of the humor of it all. But that's not my style of humor that I like because I just feel so bad for him. He tried to do a bit and everyone is like, you fucking weirdo, what are you doing?
It's so bad. It's so bad. I love it. I love it.
It gives me secondhand embarrassment. I don't like
the more I talk about it, the more I want to put a number one, but like my number 2 and 1 like really just are just knockouts for me. I'm surprised this isn't my number 1 because it's so funny, especially just retelling it. I love it. It's also because he's just such an unmenacing presence too.
Yeah,
like, he doesn't even go. It's it's like the Ruffalo. I am Mark Ruffalo, so like, I love it. Go ahead.
I have to watch this moment again, give it another chance. Okay, so my number 3 is a moment from Spider-Man Homecoming. It is so specific. Okay, so no one's gonna know what I'm talking about.
We're laughing. Okay, I bet you I will. No, I'm kidding, I won't.
Okay. Oh, this is such a funny movie. The first 2 Spider-Man movie are pretty funny. So there's a moment where Ned and Peter are just like walking down the hallway. They're like talking about like the Chitauri weapon that they have, like whatever. And 2 of the Vulture's henchmen come into the school. And Peter like quickly, like, just some Spider-Man, like, oh, we got to hide real quick. And then Ned just kind of like shuffles. This isn't even the funny part. I'm just building it up. Ned just kind of like shuffles like very slowly to hide behind the corner. And in the background, it's like you can see a window into the classroom. And it's some kind of club happening in the background of these 2 students who are like, whatever. They're hiding behind this classroom you can see into. And Peter's talking so seriously. He's like, oh, those are the 2 guys. We're going to have to follow them later. And then Peter takes off. He's like, see you later, Ned. Like, I'll talk to you later. Peter takes off. And then they cut back to Ned. And one of the students has gotten up from the window. He knocks on the window a couple times. And he's like, what are you doing? He's like asking Ned. He's like, what are you doing? And Ned's like, oh, just hanging out. Nothing. What are you doing? And the kid just goes, chess.
Okay, that's it.
So like awkward and like the way he just is like chess.
I want to find a timestamp because I want to watch it. I have no recollection of this moment at all. I'll have to find it after the episode. I don't want to watch it right now, but that sounds great.
No, it's just one of those like really quick moments where it's just like I love that they wrote in all this like awkwardness of being in high school in that movie and how they included this like very minuscule moment that has nothing to do with the story, but it's just like, oh, we're in here having chess club. Like it really tickles my fancy a lot.
that's such like a personal thing too, that like every time you watch it, you're probably gonna crack up. Like I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. I can't talk on it because I've seen it obviously, but
it's good. It's really, really specific and weird. I'm sure many people have no idea what I'm talking about right now.
So my number 2, the reason you might not allow it is because it's not an MCU film, but it kind of technically is. So I'm gonna
one of the Deadpool movies.
It's Deadpool 2. So like if you don't want to allow it, you don't have to. I have it back up number 10. All right, cool. It's my favorite visual gag in any superhero movie. It's after he gets his legs blown after he gets his legs blown off, and you cut to this next scene where he's sitting on the couch and he's got the little legs. He's going full Lord Farquaad. He's got like the little legs, and he's just sitting there with like Blind Owl, who like apparently like I guess he makes a joke about like her accidentally groping his leg, thinking it was something else or something. Yeah. But he's like sitting there and he does like the what is the Basic Instinct thing where he like moves his one leg and then moves his other leg over, kind of like the Sharon Stone thing of the legs. And it's to top it all off with the phrase "the full Winnie the Pooh" because you know exactly what that means. No bottoms, just top. I don't know. I just think that whole scene where he's just sitting on the couch, just chilling like the little guy is, little Deadpool with the little legs. It's just the funniest little visual thing. And every time I get to it, I cannot stop laughing. And I was just like, you know what? Of all the Marvel moments I think of, that is like the one that first popped into my mind was the full Winnie the Pooh. And I was like, it doesn't count, but I'm gonna put it there anyway. And if it was on the list, it would be like number 2. I think it's like that funny to me. You know, there's some TJ Miller stuff that he sucks, but like. He also comes in and they start bantering or whatever, and there's like a little fight. But again, he's fighting while sitting with his little legs cross-legged. I don't know. I think it's hilarious. I don't know.
No,
so it's gonna
that's a really good moment, Dill. Yeah. No, that is a really good visual gag.
What's your number 2?
My number 2 is from Spider-Man: Far From Home. Okay. And it is the moment where the all of the Peter's class trip is all on one of those double-decker red buses. They're currently like driving over the Tower Bridge, which is where the last fight of the movie takes place, as we know. Mm-hmm. And the teachers are so funny in this movie throughout the entirety of it, because you have the one that's like trying to be responsible, and then you just have the one that's like, I'm taking an Ambien and I'm going to sleep. Like, and then he says, JB Smoove is the other teacher, and he says something earlier in the film that almost made my list, that was like, we're leaving because it's witches, welcome to the new dark ages. Like, he just has all these great one-liners. But then there's one minute, but this moment where chaos is ensuing on the Tower Bridge, where JB Smoove is like, what are we gonna do now? Like you're because he's also a teacher, so it's like, you should also be responsible for these children. And Martin Starr just yells back at him, I'm doing my best, Julius. And it's so funny every time. I quote that like to myself. Like, I say that to people and they don't know what I'm talking about. Like, if I'm ever feeling like really busy at work and someone's like, oh, Kelsey, do you need help with something? I'll just turn to them and I'm like, I'm doing my best, Julius. It's just for me. It's an inside joke with myself, because I
feel like these top picks are very personal picks, and which I love. It's not as conventional. I love it. All right, so my number 1, this was kind of what I hinted at earlier. I could not think of one. I knew it had to be a Drax or Mantis moment, because they are the funniest things in the MCU for me, and I couldn't come up with one. So I literally wrote Drax and Mantis in literally everything, and then I did a top 10 of just their stuff. So I'm just going to rattle off quick. Number 10, Are we pretending to be angry again? Mantis, you asshole! Number 10. Number 9, everything with Drax and the funny little man in the Christmas special. 8 is when Tony is trying to explain his plan on Titan during Infinity War, and Drax is yawning, and he's like, are you yawning? He's like, I didn't pay attention to what you just said. Number 7 is Mantis petting Rocket like he's a dog. Number 6 is kick names, take ass. Again, great Mantis line. Number 5 is when they're trying to test out the intercoms on their helmets, and they're like, is this working? And she goes, hello! And they all just like, it like hurts their ears. Number 4 is after Mantis gets hit, and 2 seconds later, Drax says, Mantis, look out. I love that. Number 3 is I know. Number 3 is why is Gamora. Number 2 is Drax silent with the potato chips, obviously, where he's like, no one can hear me, I'm silent. And my number 1, and I don't know if this is on your list as well, but in Guardians 3, when they're and they're bouncing from planet to planet, and every landing Mantis has is just boom, just getting pummeled. Every time she lands, it's just like her body just convulses and contorts, and everyone else is so smooth, like moonwalking on the moon, and she's just boom, like just going nuts. that is the most I think we've laughed together during a movie.
Yeah.
Watching that, so that was like that is my number one moment is Mantis's landings on the on the every planet when she lands and she just kind of like starts spitting while everyone else is yeah, it's just so funny. But really, Drax and Mantis as a collective is my number one because them together, but also them individually. I love it. All three movies, I think Drax delivers. I think all four, all three movies. Mantis is in, she delivers. I guess they're in more because of the Avengers, but you know what I mean. All the movies are in, they deliver. And I think just that Mantis landing sequence is so funny because it happens so many times and it never gets old. And it's subtle. Like they don't draw attention to it until the very last one where she's just like, you know. Mantis though, I think it might even be funnier than Drax given the day, depending on the day. So. Love it. I love the two of them, but I wanted to give that top spot to both of them collectively. But if I had to shout out a moment, it would be the Mantis pummeling stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's good, Dale. That was a really, really good breakdown. I like that a lot. The moment from Guardians 3, I know exactly what you're talking about because I just like rewatched it last night to prepare for this list. And I wrote that down for like one of my like potential when I was like making my list. I was like Mantis. How did I even phrase it? Mantis struggling in spacesuit. Just like every time she just like cannot get a grip on herself. Yeah. I actually have a different Guardians 3 moment. It was the
as your number one?
As my number one.
Wow. Okay.
It is the first thing that I wrote down when I was thinking just off the top of the dome, off the cuff.
I think I might know what it is.
With top 10 funniest moments. And I figured that since I thought of it first, it's probably like the funniest to date at least. And that is Open the Fucking Door from Guardians 3.
Nice. Yeah, it's a good one.
Because it's a good one, and it has that shock and awe effect because he does drop the hard F word, or like not the hard F word because that's a slur. I just mean like he said fuck, which people had not done yet in the MCU. And so
if you drop the hard F word,
no.
It would probably fit Chris Pratt a little bit better, but based on his political views, he would probably use that word. But anyway, no, I'm just kidding.
But Peter Quill saying "open the fucking door" to Nebula, who is struggling so hard to figure out an American car, or like an Earth car at least. And so that's my number one.
See, I thought you were gonna come. It's a great moment. I love that moment. I didn't think of it just because I thought of so many Drax and Mantis moments, but I actually thought of another Drax moment that I thought you were gonna bring up because it's the hardest I've heard you laugh. I think in a movie, which is right after like the saddest sequence of the movie with like Rocket and his animal friends, and then the immediate next cut is Drax just punching a guy off a motorcycle. So like, the motorcycle's going just boom. And that I remember that got a real big laugh from you because you were crying from Rocket and then you were crying even harder from the Drax because you thought that was hilarious. So I would also put that on my 10 Drax and Mantis moments. But there you go. Top 10 moments. I mean, we really delivered, I think. A little bit of a long episode because we had to talk about Comic-Con stuff, but it was fun to end on a funny note. And I'm going to go watch those Spider-Man moments back, the Julius moment and the chess moment.
Chess.
But yeah, chess. That
was kind of it. You kind of did it perfectly. You don't even know the moment.
We're gonna have to make that an inside joke on the show now. But next week we have another. So next week is going to basically be the same episode as this one. It's just a different topic, top 10, and a different news source. We're getting D23 this weekend. Or next weekend. So we will have more Marvel news, probably about the TV shows to talk about. But in case there's not a lot of news, we didn't want to just devote a whole episode to it. So we're also going to be doing, what's our topic, Kelsey? Top 10 quotes? Is that what we decided?
The top 10 most iconic quotes from the MCU.
Most iconic. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So not just our favorite, but like most iconic. Cool. So our most iconic quotes next week. So if you have quotes, let us know in the comments what your quotes would be, and let us know what your funniest moments of the MCU are, and let us know what you think of RDJ and first steps and all the Marvel news we got at Comic-Con. We are going to get D23 next week. So Kelsey, what else do you have to tease for the future? Anything cool coming to your TikTok or your Instagram, or you just want to plug them? What's up?
I mean, I definitely have ideas stirring around in my brain. I'm really excited. I don't know if it's a surprise to talk about the other things that I might be doing on this channel coming up.
No, we announced it last month. Kelsey will also be on Picture This month. For the year 1968, talking about the films Funny Girl, The Lion in Winter, Oliver, Rachel, and Romeo and Juliet, the Zeffirelli version. So you can catch her on that show too. I at first I was confused. I was like, wait, what are you talking about? I was like, oh yeah, no, that's this month. So Kelsey will be on that this month as well. Are you excited for that, Kelsey? Have you started those movies yet? Have you thought about them yet?
I haven't. I'm actually doing my own research of just watching old Picture This episodes with you and Chad to prepare. So
hope you don't go too far back, because we found our groove eventually, but the first few episodes are a little, it's a little failure on launch. But no, not failure.
Yeah.
But it got its groove after a while. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. We're talking about 5 Best Picture nominees, then we also just give our prizes for the Best Actor and Actress of that slate. So it's gonna be fun. I think it'll be a fun time. And we're talking about stuff we love: musicals, plays, all that.
Yeah. Other than that, you can find me on Instagram, Kelsey A. Kilpatrick, TikTok, Kelsey A. Kilp, and my letterbox is the same thing as my TikTok, at Kelsey A. Kilp.
There you go. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo Twitter, Dylan Randazzo 417 at TikTok. Also go to the Dill Pickle Movie Network TikTok. I'm going to try my best to just keep stuff coming and getting some traction there. We got a lot of views on all our Big Brother stuff there. And then Dill Pickle Movie Network to watch on YouTube and all that jazz. Otherwise, stay tuned. Next week, we'll be talking about D23, and we will be talking about our top 10 most iconic quotes in the MCU. Thanks for watching.